Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Uh, and thanks, Dr. Prashant, for bringing me up. But I think this applause, I would like to actually dedicate it to Ashwini because she's the real star for the evening today. And so let's get started. I'll try to finish it on time. थोड़ा बड़ा टॉपिक है, थोड़ा हैवी टॉपिक है, और I want to do justice to it. So in case if we exceed by a few minutes, please, I'll try to finish it on time. Um, so I'll share my screen. Um I'll share my screen and let's get started, right? ओके सो आज हम फास्टिंग की बात करेंगे। हिंदी में व्रत बोलते हैं। इट्स अ वेरी कॉमन थिंग, एटलीस्ट इन इंडिया इट्स वेरी वेरी कॉमन, राइट? बट हम सो द नेम ऑफ दिस सेशन इज द फास्टिंग ब्लूप्रिंट। बट हम यहाँ पे फास्टिंग, मैं आपको फास्टिंग में एक्सपर्ट नहीं बनाना चाहता हूँ। आई यू डोंट नीड टू गिव अ सेशन लाइक दिस ऑन फास्टिंग, बट you should be able to do fasting successfully, right? So we'll take a practical approach to fasting today, right? तो हम उसको cover करेंगे in the next maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes or so. Okay. So पहले let's understand a few concepts, right? Before we go into fasting, कुछ concepts समझ लेते हैं, right? Certain principles and concepts. So the first thing is कि हम जब खाना खाते हैं, when we eat, you can see on the right hand side, this is the alimentary canal. It basically starts from the mouth, which is not there in the picture, but from there till the anal outlet. This entire alimentary canal, when any activity is happening in it, when digestion is happening, when we're using this digestive machine, close to about 80% of the body's bandwidth is blocked here. It is maybe in terms of blood flow, in terms of the energies in the body, in terms of everything. Almost about 80% of the body is focusing on the digestive activity, right? So that is the first thing जो हमें समझना है. Second thing we need to understand is that there are different kinds of food and they take different time to pass through our system, right? For example, अगर आप एक fruit खा रहे हो तो typically 1.5 to 2 hours, 2.5 hours, depending on what is the water content of the food, fruit and so on, it takes that much time to pass through our system. अगर आप raw vegetable खा रहे हो, typically salads with all vegetables, more watery vegetables, so 3 to 4 hours is what it takes to go through our system, right? अगर आप कुक वेजिटेरियन फूड खा रहे हो तो अबाउट 7 to 10 hours it takes, again depending what kind of food is it and so on, how much grain, how much vegetable and all, but typically 7 to 10 hours, right? और अगर आप नॉन वेजिटेरियन कुक नॉन वेजिटेरियन फूड खा रहे हो तो अबाउट 20 to 30 hours is what it takes, again depending on what kind of food you're eating. I'll not talk about raw non-vegetarian because none of us eat that, right? So this is another thing जो हमें समझना चाहिए. We need to understand this. The best food is the food that passes through our system the quickest, right? Because the longer the food stays in our system, putrefaction will happen, a lot of bacterial overgrowth will happen, and that is not good for our health and our body, right? Carbs and fiber, they are the one which activate the digestive system more significantly, right? If you're taking something which has maybe micronutrients and all, they will not activate so much, but carbs and fiber typically will activate it more significantly. Thumb rule, 8 to 10 hours of gap between major meals and about 3 to 4 hours of gap between dinner and sleeping time works best, right? Now that does not mean that I eat at 10 o'clock and I sleep at 2 o'clock, right? You should sleep in the time that you should sleep, but typically this is a good thumb rule to follow, right? So now that we understand this, let's quickly go into अगर आप फास्टिंग कर रहे हो या you're new to fasting, you're used to it, you hear a lot of jargons, right? And I've just put together some of these types of fasting. You hear about intermittent fasting, you hear about OMAD, you hear about 5-2, you hear about 24-hour fast, you hear about alternate day fast, you hear about juice fasting, you hear about water fasting, you hear about dry fasting, and many, many other kinds of fasting, right? So the idea is, I just want to put some jargons here, but don't worry about that. And you can always consult with somebody who's invited you here, or if you're working with a coach, what is suitable for you. But these are things which are, representation of the same concepts that we spoke in the earlier slide, right? So I'll move to the next one. The other thing which I have to note is that our dietary patterns have changed over maybe last 4 or 5 decades, or 3 or 4 decades, right? 4 or 5 decades definitely, or maybe independence until today, right? So in the past, typically there was scarcity of food. खाना थोड़ा कम होता था, right? Today there is abundance of food, right? And I'm on top of that, you have the Swiggies and the Zomatos of the world. So there is abundance of food. Um, Earlier, we used to eat 2 or 3 times, better insulin management, you're not sort of munching throughout the day. आज के दिन में today, frequent eating, poor insulin, wherever you go, you have abundance of food options. Things are designed around you so that, you should keep eating, they're tempting, and, so much of psychological tricks going around. So that is where we are. Earlier food, the nutrition deficiency density was very high, right? आप जो भी खाते थे उसमें पोषण बहुत होता था. The nutrition was very high. Today the nutrition density typically is low because so much of junk food, fast food, and so on. Earlier we used to eat at ease, right? Lunchtime, dinner time, we'll sit together, eat aram se. There was no TV, because TV only had 1 or 2 channels, so there is no phone, mobile was not there. You have to go and pick up the receiver from the landline. So it was less distraction, eating, at ease. Now it is eating on the go, right? In the office, I see many times, they do a working lunch in meetings, right? They'll talk, do meet, and that. So it's on the go, stressed environment, right? You're eating, but thinking and talking and discussing and things like that. High amounts of distraction, right? So there's a fundamental change. Fundamental change हुआ है हमारे पहले और आज के दिन के खाने के तरीकों में. So this is another thing I wanted us to be aware of. Okay. Now, बहुत लोगों ने फास्टिंग ट्राई किया होगा. Some people find it difficult. कुछ ने स्टार्ट किया, they could not finish it. So here are a few things जो कि which typically in my experience are reasons why it is difficult to fast, right? So let's look at that. पहली बात होती है कि why am I fasting, right? Is it because I want to improve my health? Is it because of some religious or cultural aspect that I want to fast on a certain day? Is it because I'm part of a group, they are fasting, so I want to fast with them? So why clear अगर नहीं है तो it becomes difficult to fast, right? So if you want to fast, make sure that the why is clear कि आप fasting क्यों करना चाहते हैं, right? So that is the first thing. कई बार क्या होता है, the body is not primed for fasting, right? My eating habits are very poor, and I eat a lot of junk food and this and that. Body is not nutritionally ready, so it's not primed for fasting. So that also becomes very difficult because the body will not support you too much on fasting. I'm habituated too much to nervous stimulants like tea, coffee, alcohol, etc., etc., which basically disturbs my energy release mechanism of the body, and then it becomes difficult to fast because now the body is not able to handle the release of energy when during fasting, right? I'm surrounded by a lot of negative emotions like stress, anger. Stress eating suna hoga apne, drives you towards eating. So that is another thing which makes people fail at fasting. I'm typically eating lower nutrient food, junk food, frequent eating. I eat very late. So again, the body is not ready. It's not capable of able to support me in fasting. I have some metabolic diseases, diabetes, heart disease, and so on. So that also provides a little bit of a stress on the system when you want to fast for longer periods of time, right? I have a low stamina towards fasting. I'm new to fasting. Fasting मैंने पहले कभी की नहीं है या की है, but I failed. So my body, I don't have the stamina for fasting, right? जैसे आप जिम में जाते हैं तो फर्स्ट डे यू पिक अप अ 20 kg डंबल, यू नॉट यूज टू इट, यू विल नॉट एबल टू डू दैट, बट यू बिल्ड अ स्टैमिना, आफ्टर दैट यू आर एबल टू डू दैट. द सेम थिंग इज विद फास्टिंग एज वेल, right? So these are some of the common reasons why we are not able to fast, right? Now, what to do in fasting, you will get from YouTube and Google and ChatGPT and all. But it's also equally important how to be during fast, right? how you should conduct yourself. That's very important, right? So let's look at that. And I like the smile of this old lady here, right? Okay. So better to avoid strenuous physical activity, right? And going too much gymming and too much this. So don't do that, because the body is trying to do focus on detoxification. Lighter activities are okay, right? You remember that the first slide where we saw that 80% of the bandwidth. Now in a fasting, that 80% of the body's energy is available to you. It is not required in digestion. So which means that now the body can do so many different things, right? So allow it to do that. Don't get into negative emotional situation as far as possible. Stress, anger at work, at home, relationships. So try to stay a little away from that for those few days you are on fast. Provide sensory rest, right? All five sense organs, right? Provide sensory rest. So Netflix, Prime, WhatsApp. So now today I am fasting. I am lying on my couch and I am watching 8 episode, 10 episode series on Netflix. No, provide sensory rest and on all sense organs, right? Maintain abstinence and all kinds of sensory rest, right? Avoid being around food, right? It's a no-brainer, right? घर में है तो don't go around the kitchen. If you are at work, don't go in the cafeteria. So do that. Indulge in activities that provides emotional stability, like maybe meditation, chanting, whatever works for you. But keep your system a little stable. That helps to do the fasting. Do it as a group if possible. That is wonderful, because group energy is always very helpful, right? And consciously facilitate toxin removal since the body is detoxifying. So detoxification is a little on the hyperdrive when you're fasting. So you should also make sure that maybe you clean the elimination channels of your body so that the toxins are removed, effectively, right? So these are some of the tips that you can follow on how to be during fasting, and it helps you, right? I'll quickly move on to the next one. Okay. So it's also important to understand that there is something called as empty stomach, and then there's something called as hungry, right? Empty stomach means मेरे पेट में कुछ नहीं है. Most times we confuse that with कि पेट में कुछ नहीं है मतलब कुछ खाना जरूरी है, because पेट में कुछ होना चाहिए. If my stomach is empty, I need to eat something because something has to be there in the stomach. No, that's wrong. So let's understand. Empty stomach is if you feel like eating at that empty stomach, maybe it's driven by mind playing games. Okay, it's 1 o'clock, why are you not eating lunch? Or some social cues, everybody around you is eating lunch, why should you eat lunch? Or I want to eat lunch, I enjoy this food, whatever. But hungry means it's the body need for nourishment, right? So that is the first thing. If you're an empty stomach, actually your body is alert and it functions at its best, right? But if you're hungry, the body functions gets impacted, because perhaps and again, not missing a meal or something, it will not happen. But if you stay hungry for long periods of time, body needs nourishment. If you're empty stomach, a good trick is, okay, fine, drink a glass of water, 2 glasses of water. After that, if you're still hungry, which means it is hunger, otherwise it was empty stomach, right? But if you're hungry, the body needs food. Otherwise, it will reach out to open the stored energy, which is what happens during fasting, right? So important thing to understand here. Okay. Some considerations we should make while we are fasting, right? Guidance is very important. So, most of you, I would recommend that do under guidance of a coach or a professional. But for these below conditions, definitely yes. Pregnant, lactating women, children under 10 years, it should be avoided, right? You should not do fasting, right? Metabolic disorders, you have thyroid, diabetes, long fast, don't do it unsupervised. Take help from a coach and take guidance into it. Women, fasting is better to be aligned with the monthly cycles. Safe to fast during the luteal and the menstrual phase, but because estrogen is normally higher, avoid fasting during follicular and ovulation phases, right? If you're going for a fast, long fast, more than 2-3 days, and you're not used to fasting, take guidance from a coach. It's always better, right? Okay. Now, what are the benefits of fasting, right? So, and there are multiple benefits of fasting. I've just captured a few, right? First is autophagy. आपने सुना होगा नाम, it sort of got a Nobel Prize in medicine in 2016 as well. इसमें क्या होता है? Roughly after 24 hours, if you're fasting for more than 24 hours, body breaks down the old cells and the not so efficient cells and sort of builds new cells. it consumes them, right? So it's like a cellular rejuvenation in that sense, right? And fantastic mechanism. Insulin sensitivity, आप अगर बार बार खा रहे हैं, you're eating very frequently, insulin is always on the high, because whenever you eat, digestion happens, it goes to the intestines, absorption of glucose in the blood, pancreas starts secreting insulin, and then the insulin is always on the high, right? Because you're eating very frequently. When you are long periods of fast, the insulin requirement goes down and insulin sensitivity improves in the body, right? Human growth hormone, another fantastic hormone, we all need it. Gradually it decreases as we ages, but fasting will increase the HGH, reduces inflammation, improves metabolism. So fantastic for that. Very interesting, because cancer is on the rise in this era. So the cancer cells typically they need about 20 to 30 times of glucose compared to normal cells to survive, right? Now I'm eating regularly, मैं regular खा रहा हूँ, so बहुत सारा glucose बन रहा है body के अंदर, and the cancer cells are having a field day, correct? But the moment I do fasting, actually cancer cells they die because they do not get that much food for them to survive, right? So fantastic ways, but again, if you have such a case, please do it in consultation with the medical practitioner. But there are a lot of, in fact, Dr. Prashant was talking about Dr. Jamnadas, Pradeep Jamnadas, he talks a lot about fasting and cancer cells, right? So there are a lot of studies being done on that. Metabolic disorders, so fasting, prolonged fasting, fat metabolism happens, improves hormone sensitivity, and metabolic disorders is all about hormones out of balance, right? Cardiovascular health, आपका heart health better होता है, BP कम होता है, bad cholesterol LDL will come down, low density lipoprotein, triglycerides will come down. So that is that, right? Mitochondrial biogenesis, नाम बड़ा heavy है, but essentially it does is कि आपके cell में there is something called as mitochondria, which is like a powerhouse of the cell, which generates energy, takes oxygen, takes nutrients, generates energy, and that it helps to create new mitochondria, right? So that means more energy in the body, more resilient cells, right? So that is fantastic. Brain function improves, right? BDNF, brain derived neurotropic factor, it's like a fodder for the brain. Ketones, ketosis सुना होगा आपने, so ketone production, it helps in memory function, cognitive function improvement. So fantastic. Improved sleep, right? Fasting regulates the circadian rhythm, balances cortisol, melatonin, and various other hormones, and helps in better sleep management, right? These are only few things. I mean, there are so many things about fasting, but I just want to capture a few things here, right? Okay. Now, this is something which is not talked about very, very often in that sense, right? It is, if not more, it is equally important. How do you break a fast? You do a fast, but how do you break a fast is very important, right? The mantra is start slow. आप फास्ट कर रहे हैं उसके बाद आप स्टार्ट स्लो कीजिए. Imagine like you have a machine in a factory, the machine has been down for a month, it's not been used. Now you will not give a huge load of raw material on day one and start the machine, right? It is not good for the life of the machine. So you start slow, give a small batch, let it process, warm it up a little bit, then give on a little bigger batch. So that same common sense have to apply to this machine as well, right? In fact, it's most fasts which are done for religious and cultural purposes are actually not opened in the right way, right? We fast throughout the day, हम पूरा दिन हम fast करते हैं और रात को फिर हम right uncontrolled, right कि ये भी चाहिए वो भी चाहिए वो भी चाहिए. And हिंदी में if you understand Hindi, there is a term called फल आहार. I always say कि उसमें फल नहीं है, उसमें खाली आहार है, right? Because we have found out all alternatives and we have a lot of carbs and things like that. So not good, right? So what should we do? Open fast gradually. Don't jerk the digestive system into heavy action, right? जो हमने बात की अभी. You can start like gradually, maybe with water, vegetable juice, smoothie, low GI fruit, raw vegetable salad, soup, and then move to a full meal. Again, it depends. I mean, work with somebody who is helping you if you're on a long fast, or if you're doing it for religious purposes. You're not sort of repeating it every time, but figure out a way. But give enough time to open a fast properly and allow the system to come back to full digestion capacity. right? So that's very important. Mindset of fasting. Oh, this is very important. So fasting, most people, what they do is when they're new to fasting, they say, okay, fine. Oh, this guy, oh, to 48 hours fast kar liya. I'm not able to fast only for 4 hours. So you force yourself to fasting. That becomes very ugly, right? Fasting has to be effortless, right? So we have to develop a stamina towards fasting, dire dire, slowly do that. So fasting is not a competition; it's a personal journey. I have my own starting point. I will do what I want. I will do what my body is comfortable with. And slowly, I will develop that stamina, right? Please do not do it as a competition. You can harm your body, basically, right? It's very, very important. Cannot stop, cannot end it without, the spiritual connection of fasting, right? I mean, every religion has, every culture has fasting embedded into it. You have Navratri, Ramadan, Lent, month of Lent in Christianity, Ekadashi and so on. So it has a lot of connection with religion and spirituality. It's associated with cleansing ourselves, and when you will see that typically when people are on fast, they're provided great care and support and respect, right? Because there is much more than the physical aspect of or benefits that is coming in, right? Typically it's done as a group along with other activities which we talked about it, right? It sort of keep your emotion a little stable. It helps, it creates a supportive environment that has been there since ages, in various cultures and religions, right? So it's not a mere technique to lose weight. While it's a nice byproduct that you do fasting and you lose weight, but fasting is much more than that, right? And with that, thank you very much, and for being a wonderful audience and listening to me. And happy fasting. And back to the host.